like half the size of my hometown right here in this room, which is absolutely crazy. What an honor for Mike and I both to be up here in front of all of you. I mean, when you think about the fact that there's over 190,000 Beachbody coaches now, that we're two of the individuals we're just humbled to be chosen as two of the individuals to be up here speaking to all of you and trying to equip you with some skills that you're going to need going forward. I tell you, Mike and I have been friends now for 6 years.
Yeah, Summit 09 is where we met.
Summit of 09, when I was a Beachbody Challenge finalist after losing 100 pounds. And at that summit, there were only 700 people at the whole summit. So if that tells you anything, we've been around for a little while. And I got to tell you, I've watched Mike succeed in this business starting from scratch. And with all the accolades and recognition that he's had, superstar diamond coach, let's hear it for him. He's one of the new $1 Million Circle members. But the one thing I know about this guy is he's always learning. We get on phone calls together. We've been success partners for about 5 of those 6 years. We get on phone calls together. Just a couple weeks ago, I was talking about the new 5-step training where we're teaching people how to bridge and giving them like the exact interview process. And Mike was like, man, that's the stuff I need. I haven't had that. Thank you for giving that to me. We needed that. And so for somebody of that stature in the company to be that humble and open to learning, what a great example he sets for all of us that are in this room today, that we need to do the same. Would you agree? Right? And so, Mike, I don't know, man. We've been friends for a long time.
Well, hey, thank you so much. And, you know, here's the thing that you need to know about Tommy. Tommy is the perpetual student of life. Tommy's the guy that will do personal development on a whole different level. Tommy's a high school football coach from Bellevue, Ohio, right? And so there's something that's special, I think, about a coach that knows how to motivate their kids, that knows how to bring out the best in somebody. And when you look at the team that he's put together, the Swarm, does he got any Swarm in the house?
All right.
Okay, so he's got this amazing team of people that he leads, but how do you lead people? You lead people by example. You lead people with intention. And he has set the intention to go learn as much as he possibly can. And I think that I would be scared if somebody said, hey, well, I'm done learning, and thanks, that was good. Now I'm just going to enjoy life. Yeah. Like, no, we're going to learn all the time. But Tommy is the guy who probably has done more personal development than the next 50 of us put together. And those things, the nuggets, the wisdom that comes out of that, the ideas and the conversations, that's why we're success partners, because nothing but positive things comes out of a relationship like that. And it's just one of those amazing things that you get some time with another amazing human being and your life will be better for it. His mission is just like mine. We're here to add value to people's lives. And if that's you and you're saying, hey, I want to learn how to do these things, I want to be better at these things, great. We're students of the game. Just like Darren Hardy talked about today, about embracing failure, we have failed our butts off, right? Would you say that's fair to say?
I would say this, guys. All 3,000 of you in this room today are going to learn from all the failures that Mike and I have been through. Does that sound good, right? And we're going to learn exactly about what all of us deal with. There's a reason why this particular workshop is in the largest room in the entire place, and that's because every single coach, no matter who you are, gets objections. How many of you have gotten objections from people as you introduce them to Beachbody? Right? You know, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. You know, my spouse doesn't like to work out, so that's why I'm fat too. My kids, like to eat French fries, so I like to eat French fries. My kids won't eat it, so I can't eat it, right? So we're here today, Mike and I, to just share with you the things that we've learned and used to help us build organizations, to build incomes, and to change literally tens of thousands of lives through that effort. And so one of those things is just how to identify those common objections that all of us get, okay, that every single one of us gets, but not only to identify what those objections are, but to give you some very specific skills and techniques and methods for you both to prevent and avoid and handle those objections. How many of you feel like you could use some skills, very simple skills, to help you prevent objections and avoid objections and handle objections, right? We're going to do some role-playing situations today, so we're not just going to tell you what to do. We're going to show you exactly how we use those in live situations. So we're going to role-play for you guys. Does that sound good? And then we're going to give you those specific objection handling techniques. So this is really what we expect from you. So we need to have an agreement here as to what's going to happen over the next 50 minutes. We need you to be teachable, just like Mike and I have been for all these years, just like all of the top coaches have been over the 7 years of this network. we need you to determine which of these skills and systems that you truly believe in your heart you could take and utilize and put into action. And once you do that, it's going to be great. So let's just start with this, defining objections. See, there's this common notion out there that objections are this bad thing, right? Like, oh my God, they gave me an objection. And so until you understand what they are and what they aren't, it's going to be difficult for you to navigate your way around them. So objections certainly are not a final answer. It's definitely not a no. How many of you get an objection and you go, okie dokie?
Yeah,
right?
It's not a no, it's a not right now is usually the case.
Absolutely. Or it just means that they have uncertainty of information. They're not quite sure that what we're presenting to them has the value that they need in order to make the decision they need to make to go forward with the transaction. Okay? That the prospect just doesn't have enough info. That basically an objection is nothing. How many of you drive a car, right? You're driving a car and you go through the parking lots and there's a little speed bump. Right? There's a speed bump, and what do? Well, some of you might go 80 over the speed bump, like Mike does.
No.
Right? But they're really a speed bump where you just need to slow down. Slow down, take your time over it, make sure that you get over it safely, and so that you can bring the person to a decision. Objections often come from a lack of trust, and that was something that Mike talked about with me a lot. So
yeah, the thing that happens is that you need, and we're going to get more in depth with this, but you've got to have enough rapport and relationship with people, because if you don't have the trust, it doesn't matter what anecdotal thing you can say, what line you can write down and memorize, you won't win. And so we're going to teach you how to basically not provoke more objections than you're getting right now, because that's not just about preventing. I think a lot of people really provoke them and they don't understand how and why, but we're going to teach that today.
Absolutely. And Mike's going to give you a great example of exactly what you can do to build those relationships and build that trust so that you can avoid these objections. But objections are not insurmountable. They're not a final decision. They're not a final no. And they're certainly not a reason to get nervous. The reason that you get nervous is because you don't know how to handle them, which is why you're here today. So when you leave here today, you'll no longer get nervous when someone says, I don't have the money. How many of you want to not be nervous when somebody says, I don't have the money? Or when somebody says the question, so how much is it, right up front?
People just have more questions. They haven't seen the value yet. And so we're going to teach you how to bring the value out in this whole proposition.
Absolutely. And so I want you to write this down, though. Objections are either prevented or provoked, right? We talk about prevention in this network, don't we? Like the prevention of disease, right? Through good health and good nutrition. So it's the same when we deal with our prospects. By building relationships, and Mike's going to talk about that, we can then prevent these objections from happening. Objections could be provoked. Oftentimes, we provoke objections up front by doing what I call product vomiting. How many of you have product vomited all over your prospective Shakeology drinkers, right? And all of a sudden, you want to be the expert at everything that's in Shakeology and exactly why everybody on earth needs to drink this stuff 17 times a day, right? So we product vomit on people versus building relationships. So by pretending to be an expert, we oftentimes will provoke the objection right up front. So we don't want to do that to our prospective challengers. But with that said, Mike is going to really spend some time focusing on a couple of things that are going to help you on the prevention side of objections.
Yeah, so here's the thing, you guys. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Okay, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So people buy on emotion and they justify with facts. For instance, anybody in here that's ever bought a house or a car, you have found yourself, or the person standing next to you who is in that process, saying, oh my gosh, I love it, I've got to have it. I love it, I have to have it. That's not facts, that's emotion. Then they justify it with facts, right? So then they're justifying it with the appraised value, with can I qualify for this loan? Can I afford the payment? Do I have enough money for the down? Whatever, right? They're just enough facts to prove that, I can have that. That's good for me, right? And it's really not the case. So when you look at this slide, can you click it one more time? This is from Simon Sinek. He had one of the most viewed TED Talks of all time, Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. Definitely, his talk is 18 minutes of brilliance. It will help you tremendously. It'll go into a very articulate, in-depth talk on this. His book is called Start With Why. I would recommend you get that. This is just a short little blurb out of his book that I'm going to cover. Now, the middle ring is the why, the outer ring is the how, the outside is the what. What happens is the what ring are all the products. P90X, Insanity, Shakeology, Pio, products, right? The coaching business. The middle ring is the how. That's person to person, that's social media of all types. But the why is the bullseye. The why is, why did you do this thing? Why did you start this workout? It wasn't that somebody saw the P90X infomercial and said, oh, hey, exercise, that looks good, I'll buy that. They saw before and after pictures and they went, wow, that's pretty amazing. And they watched a little bit more and they heard the person's story about how that changed their life. I did this process, I did this thing, and I got this out of it. I can sleep better, I've lost weight, I'm healthier, my blood levels are better, I look better, all those different things that you've gotten out of your journey through this health and fitness lifestyle, right? Now, if you talk to somebody, what happens, a lot of coaches want to lead with the products. When you lead from the outside in, you're never really connecting in a way that is, well, it's just not connective, okay? So here, let me just read this short little clip out of Simon's book that'll explain exactly why this is and how this happens. This is going to help tremendously. So none of this, what we're talking about, is opinion. This is all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at the cross-section of the human brain from the top down, you're going to see that slide. If you can put that slide back up. Okay, that's just like the top of your brain, right? So the outer ring is the Homo sapien brain. It's your neocortex. It corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. But the middle two sections make up our limbic brain. Our limbic brain is responsible for all of our feelings like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior and all decision making, and it has no capacity for language. It's kind of fascinating, right? So in other words, when we communicate from the outside in, though people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features, benefits, facts, figures, it just doesn't drive behavior. When we can communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls the behavior and decision making, and then people rationalize their decisions with the neocortex. The neocortex is the thinking part of the brain. It's always trying to understand and make sense of the world, right? You bought an emotion, you justified with facts. You felt the emotion, and then you're making sense of it with the facts. Does this okay? Am I going to do this, right? And so this is the same reason that we think we're rational beings when we're really not. Because if we were, we would never buy a product or service simply because of how it makes us feel. We would never be loyal. We would always just choose the best. Okay, so this is a really key thing to absorb. This is a really key thing to know, because when you lead with the products, you're already shooting yourself in the foot tremendously. Now, it's one thing to name drop. I name drop the products all the time. So like when I run into somebody, I'm out and about, and somebody says, hey, man, what have you been up to? I'm like, oh, you know that P90X thing from TV? Yeah, I'm doing their new one. They have this 21-day fix. Oh, my gosh, it's amazing. Like, I haven't slept this good, and I don't even know how long. You know, and so you have some sort of hook, and then I instantly want to make it about them. So, hey, so how are you doing? How's everything going with you? And I get into the part with them. So think about this for a second. How do you share a movie that you've seen or your favorite sports team? How do you do that? So like when Kelly and I just got back from this trip, and The Secret Life of Walter Mitty was on the airplane ride home, right? So we're watching this movie, and I have to tell you, I just got enthralled. I just got lost in this. And I don't know if anybody's seen this movie, but it's about this guy who just really never lived any adventure of any kind. He just kind of went to his job every day, and he worked, and he never left. He just stayed in the same place. And next thing you know, he found himself in these adventures, and I'm watching this just going, oh my gosh, this is like bucket list kind of stuff. This is the stuff that I found myself after I watched this movie. When I got home, I started Googling bucket list items and trips, and I started looking at all these beautiful pictures. I get Kelly, I get our kids that are 8 and 10. I said, hey, you guys got to come in here. Let's look at all these places. Let's figure out where we're going to go. I mean, it made that kind of impact on me. Now, did I just tell you anything about the cast, the crew, where it was made, who made the music, who was the gopher? Did I tell you anything? Did I tell you how many minutes the movie was? Did I tell you it was a comedy? Did I tell you it was... I didn't tell you anything. I didn't give you any facts. I just told you how it made me feel. And that's where the hook is. Okay, so when we share Beachbody, we need to share why we do it. Mm-hmm. What do you get out of it? Think about that. And it's kind of like when you hear in sales presentations, they talk about your elevator pitch. it's how do I connect with somebody in a very short amount of time, because we have short amounts of time with people, and then the window kind of goes away. And so if you don't hook it right away, you just kind of get lost, right?
So let me give you an example of that specifically to what we use. So I'm a big P90X fan, right? So right now I'm doing P90X3. How many of you are doing X3, right? So we could talk about, we could sit there and talk about P90X3 and how it's 30 minutes, or I could sit there and say, you know why I do P90X3? Because it's 30 minutes a day, and if I get at least 30 minutes a day of exercise, I don't feel like shit. And I don't feel like crap, right? So to be honest with you, when I don't get my 30 minutes, I'm just not a good husband. I'm not a good father. I'm a better father because I exercise 30 minutes a day at home. Right? Versus telling them about the products. We could start with the outer ring, the products, the P90X3. We all love those things. But if we share what those things do for our lives, the real reasons why we use it, then we're more likely to make that emotional connection with somebody and therefore prevent objections. Because they may have the same emotional need, the same life need that you just said was fulfilled. Maybe they can relate to the fact that they get grumpy and they're a jerk to their wife. And so maybe if they exercise, that won't happen in their life. Does that make sense? So, what?
Yeah. Click me away.
Go ahead.
All right, so here's the thing. We have this pitch. We have this thing called the 7 R's. And this is really going to help you just kind of arrange what needs to happen in what order. And so when I first got in the business, I heard these terms, retail, recruit, retain. And I looked at that, and at first I thought, well, I'm good at retailing. I get people going. But I wasn't good at the retention. Then when I got good at retention, I was like, well, what do I need to do to make this happen again, right? And how did it happen in the first place? And so you need to have some rapport and some relationship before you make a recommendation. For instance, say you're sitting at Little League, you're sitting at soccer, you're sitting at parent pickup, you're sitting wherever you're sitting, and you find yourself in a conversation with the person next to you. And what if that person just started the full court press? Hey man, hey, you gotta do this. Hey, I got this thing, you gotta do this thing. It's gonna be so much fun, you gotta do this. Hey, you wanna do it? It's gonna be fun. You wanna do it? I do this workout thing on TV, it's really hard, I'm gonna do push-ups. I get this Shakeology stuff, dude, it's really good.
Yeah.
You want it? You're gonna find a way to leave as fast as you can. If you're at a Little League game and you're like, man, I gotta watch my kid play, this is awful. You're gonna go to the bathroom, you're gonna come back, and you're gonna sit somewhere else. You're gonna do something to get away from that scenario. But what if you just sat there and you had a conversation? Hey man, that's pretty cool. Which one's yours? Oh, he's over here, he's on the bench. Oh, that's great. How old is he? Mm-hmm. And you start the normal chit chat that we have in life. So be interested more than you're interesting. And I know that's a little tricky with all the growth with social media, because when we're on social media, we're trying to be interesting. We want people to follow us. We want people to come and find out and ask us why and engage us. But when you're talking to somebody, be interested more than you're interesting, and it's going to help you a great deal, because you're going to master the rapport and the relationship. And when you have enough of that, you can recommend something, and it's going to land on fertile soil. If I didn't know you and I said, hey, you need to go to this summit thing. We go to this summit in Vegas every year. It's amazing. Next year it's going to Nashville. It's only $100. You got to go. You're like, dude, I don't even know you. What?
Right.
That doesn't work.
The fact is this, with these 7 R's, the rapport and the relationship side of things will go a long way in preventing the objections, right? Because the rapport and relationship build trust. And what did we say at the beginning? That objections really often signify that there's a lack of trust. So oftentimes we provoke those objections from people, and we don't get them to enrollment because we haven't done the first part of the deal, which is relationship first, business follows.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's really, I don't care what business you're in. You could be in real estate, you could be in investing, you could be in whatever kind of sales capacity there is in life. You have to have this for it to work. I mean, unless you're in some critical need situation where you're an ER doctor or you're the right kind of attorney and somebody walks in the door and says, hey, I have this case and will you take it? Well, that's not what we do, and that's what 99% of people in business don't do. So we need to get warm and fuzzy with this and just do a really good job at the rapport and the relationship, and your odds go through the roof at connecting with people. And at that point, when you share that story about what you're getting out of P90X3, and you're like, I'm a better father, I'm a better husband,
right.
You had me. You had me right there, because
right.
I'm like, ooh, better, how can I be better? Man, my wife would like me more. That's cool. That's a good thing.
And the great thing about this, guys, is it doesn't just apply to Beachbody. It applies in everything. Once you learn the value of these relationships and building rapport with people, it'll open up so many doors for you. I mean, I'll just give you an example out of my own life that happened just yesterday. So my wife and I have recently made a decision to move to Fort Lauderdale, a brand new community. How many people from Florida in the room? I'm going to be a Floridian. I can't believe that. But yesterday, I met with this guy, Rocco. Is Rocco in the room? Somewhere in the room. But Rocco's the head football coach at a school down there called Aquinas High School. But yesterday, and so I'm kind of interviewing with Rocco yesterday by poolside as far as coaching on his football staff. When I moved down there, because I coach high school football and I want to continue that when I get to Florida. But the very first, we didn't sit down and just immediately go into X's and O's and blocking and running the ball and scoring points and winning games. We talked about each other's families. We talked about each other's lives. We talked about, each other's struggles with running an organization and disarming dissension among people and doing those things, leadership roles. And all of that went to rapport and relationship. Right? Does that make sense? So the most successful people understand this principle.
Yeah.
In everything that they do, but it applies to everything that you do. Okay, the reason you can't get your husband to do what you want him to do is because you jumped right into, you tried to recruit him into your deal before.
And that can be tricky when it's somebody you're close to. That is a little bit, to kind of add some color to this, it does get a little bit tricky when it's your brother, your sibling, or your brother or your sibling. I don't know. I have both of them. I have 5 brothers and sisters. I've got brothers and siblings. But my point is, they need to trust you, right? And so even though a spouse trusts you, they may not see, why should I do this? It's always rooted in the why. What am I going to get out of it? It's kind of like that. I don't know if Darren said it. Some speaker here said it this week. What's in it for me? The old Whiffam rule. What am I going to get out of it? That's what somebody's thinking. It's like when somebody's thinking about Shakeology, they're probably going, ooh, does this taste like dog food? Is it going to fill me up? Is it going to cost a lot? Do I really want to do this? It's just the natural things we go through. It's like our sniff test. Is it safe? Do I want to do this? So have the trust in place first. Your odds go through the roof. Establish trust. Focus on that in the front end of things, and then we'll teach you the rest here.
So really, on those 2 things, guys, you can do 2 things to really help you significantly avoid objections. The first one is this. Don't fact ask people. Don't be the expert on the stuff. Does that make sense? That's the first thing. The second thing is always focus on the relationship first. If you get those 2 things out of these 2 slides, I think that'll go a long way in helping you when you go out into the field.
Yeah, the fact, like he called it the fact axe. If anybody's never heard this, when I sat at some Beachbody meeting a few years back and somebody said this, I went, oh my gosh, I'm so guilty of this. And he said, just pretend that the person you're talking to is a tree, and every time you spit out another fact, you're taking a chop right into that tree with a nice sharp axe. And you're just cutting this tree down. And eventually it just goes, right? And you're killing it. You're killing your sale. You're killing the potential opportunity to change somebody's life. And I don't know about you, but I love to help change people's lives. And when we can add value to somebody, when you get those emails or those Facebook messages, somebody responds to you on Twitter or whatever, and they're like, man, what you did for me, I can't even tell you how much better everything is in my life, how much better I am as a father, as a husband, as a lawyer. Everything I do is better since I've met you. Does anybody want some more of that? Okay.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this because, the assumption is this. How many of you have learned the 5-step invitation process, right? Or that you use it? There's going to be some new training coming out. So we're not going to do a 5-step training today because we just videotaped 5-step training out in Santa Monica. That's going to be released next week at Super Saturday. It's going to be available in the online office. But if you do the 5-step process, it'll go a long way to helping you build those relationships first. But let's say that you get into some objections. What are the most common objections that as coaches or as people we deal with? Here's a list of those things that oftentimes people will say. The first one is money, right? And obviously, guys, we don't make any apologies for the cost of our products because we know that they're good, right? We're not selling junk here. So, but you will get money objections. I can't afford it. Well, you can't afford it, but you're going through Wendy's 6 times a week, Time.
Time. People, I think money and time are the top 2 excuses that we get, but there's never 2 things in life that people waste more of than time or money. The guy that spoke before we did was teaching people about money, and people are feverishly taking notes about learning strategies and these things that maybe we just didn't pick up as kids, we didn't get taught in high school, econ class, whatever. People waste it. I've wasted it. I've spent money on dinners here that cost more than a challenge pack. I was a night, I don't even remember, right? But it's, we have to establish these values. We've all
spent $200 on a night that we don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
know I have. Fitness level, how many of you, you're out there, you're talking about Insanity or P90X or something like that, and they're like, man, I'm just not in the kind of shape where I can do that, right? You guys deal with that one. That's really specific to our network is our fitness level isn't good enough. Hey, man, you know what, guys? The company just gave us 2 great options to help answer that objections with the updated P90 How many of you are excited about that, right?
Yeah.
To have an option for those people with those objections that you can say, hey, man, that's fine. We'll show you how to handle that when that comes up. The next one would be spouse.
Yeah, spouse, and then the next one is, I don't want to be in sales, or is that a pyramid scam,
Yep.
and all these,
All
just
of those
whatever.
things.
It's just questions. People want to have a response to whatever it is you say, and these are just kind of the common knee-jerk things. And some of them, they say it just because it's like a catchphrase. Somebody thinks, this is what I'm supposed to say. And all the time and money part is just an excuse, and it's kind of buying them time because they're not ready to say yes. But statistically, people can only say no about 7 or so times until they get to a yes. And so that's part of why you want to ask leading questions. Would you like to feel better? Would you like to look better? Would you like to sleep better? Would you like to look better in a swimsuit? Would you like to have healthier blood levels? Yes, 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 yeah. Of course you would. Who wouldn't? Does anybody in here want cancer? Hell no, you don't. That's right. So wouldn't you like to be healthy? Yeah, of course I would. Okay, great. This is what you need to do. You need to follow me. I know the way. This is awesome. This is what's done. I just know this is what's done for me. You need to check this out.
Yeah. So listen, guys, everybody's going to get these objections out there because here's the thing. People out in the real world are full of excuses, and that's really what their objections are, is their own excuses. And so in that thing, they're actually, when they give you an objection, they're measuring their excuse versus your belief.
Bingo. Write that down. Say that again.
They're measuring your excuse, or their excuse versus your belief. When I talked about the money objection, I said, look, we don't make any apologies for how expensive ours is because we know it's good. Is your belief that deep enough? But there's good ways and bad ways of handling these objections. And so this is really where we get to the nitty gritty because you're going to get these objections. So the first way to professionally handle this,
you need to write these down too, by the way.
Yeah, you're going to need to know these. But the first way is to do this: validate and overcome. Don't get defensive. Don't start attacking them when they give you an objection. Don't start defending the products. How many of you have defended the products before to people, right? That's something that we commonly and humanly want to do, is defend what we believe in versus validating and overcoming. Here's the reality is this: how many of you had your own objections when it came to signing up for something with Beachbody? How many of you did not say yes on the very first ask?
How many people watched the infomercial 10 times before they bought it, right? I only watched it once and I was hooked, but I saw the right one.
So something I do is I don't try to convince people. Okay, so if somebody says, you know what, I just want to start with a workout program, I'm not quite sure about the Shakeology yet, guess what? I totally understand that because when I started with P90X and I was sitting there as a fat guy with sweat dripping and Tony would talk about recovery drink, I was like, screw you, you just want my money. I never thought it took me 5 months of doing P90X before I bought a jug of recovery drink, right? Here I am, 7 years later, we get, I don't know, at least $600 worth of product that we use and samples that we use in our business each and every month. I went from being somebody who had an objection, didn't want anything other than the workout program, but here's what we have to understand. We have to have trust and faith in the company that Uncle Carl's a pretty smart guy. And as long as we get them pushing play, every day that they push play is another day they're closer to saying yes to the next thing. Because every day they're going to see a Shakeology commercial. Every day they're going to hear a trainer that they have trust and respect for talking about the value of Shakeology, talking about the value of the coaching network and all of those things. So that's the first thing, is don't get defensive, validate and overcome. The next thing would be this: using the 5-step process. The 5-step process is a plan for you to help you navigate a prospect from beginning to end, versus not having any plan at all and just winging it. How many of you know that you don't have a lot of success when you just friggin' wing it, right? It's the reason why our fitness programs work, because it's a plan. How many of you tried fitness before Beachbody and failed miserably? Because you were winging it, right? You were just out there doing your own thing. So it's the same when we're prospecting people. We can either follow a plan like the 5-step process, or we could go into it, and winging it typically doesn't turn out very well.
Yeah, now the next one, the posturing versus no confidence. This is a key thing, because even as confident as I felt in my business and in what my ability was to help another person navigate their journey of taking the challenge, of getting through the workouts and all the different things, I realized at leadership 2 years ago, Tommy and I were helping some girl through a Getting Started Right interview. We're kind of just teaching her how we take this interview on, and we do it the same way. We've been success partners. We talk all the time. And then something he did in this process just hit me like a sack of bricks. I went, oh my gosh. And he's like, what? I go, the way you just postured in that conversation, I never knew you did that. I didn't get that. He's like, you don't do that? I'm like, I don't do that. And that one thing, by learning this posture, and we'll teach you this, by learning this posture, it's completely changed my business, and it's empowered all these coaches on our team to go to whole different levels because they realize that it's not how great I can take no, not how nice I can be, it's how can I help these people get from here to there. And having confidence and posturing with somebody is not being mean. And I had to really go through and learn that, but that was something it's a huge thing. The next one, using story versus explaining facts and convincing. Explaining facts, team, for some reason that tends to be where a lot of people go. And like with Shakeology, definitely where a lot of people go. They want to start talking about all the different ingredients. This is what it's going to do. This is how it's going to be. That doesn't sell anybody. That's like the guy in the video that says, hey, little fella, I don't understand what you're saying to me. When you use a story, you get caught up in the moment. Just like when I was telling you about that movie, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and you just get lost in that movie, right? That's what you have to do. It's learning how to craft what you want to communicate into a story.
So we'll write this down. Facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah.
I mean, think about everything that you're emotionally moved by. Music, movies. The best movies and the best songs are ones that tell a story, right? Those are the ones that you connect with. Those are the ones that move you versus the facts and the figures and the explaining and doing all those things. The last thing is this, asking questions versus avoiding conflict. So when somebody gives you an objection, you have two ways that you can handle that. You could, first of all, avoid the conflict, or you could treat it as that speed bump, slow down, and take it as an opportunity to begin asking more questions of the person you're talking to figure out exactly what it is that's holding them back. And I want you to write that down. Don't be afraid. Don't assume what their objection is. You will provoke objections if you begin to assume what their objection is. You know when somebody's being hesitant, don't assume it's because of money. It might not be because of money. So the best way to avoid doing that is to simply do this. Stop and say, hey, you seem to be hesitant. Can I ask you a question? What's holding you back?
Yeah, what's holding you back? That's
what's
so
holding
key.
you back is such a huge question that I use all the time because until I know what's holding them back, I can't answer and give them a solution for what their issue is. Does that make sense? It might be that their issue is something completely different than what I assumed. I will tell you this, on the money side of things, you will provoke money objections because here's the thing. Every time someone's hesitant, because you have your own money objection, you haven't found the value enough to believe that it's worth it yourself, you will assume that that's the other person's objection. You'll assume it's a money thing, and all of a sudden, you'll get money objections. You will, like, attract these things to you. Yeah. Exactly like that. One last thing I want you to write down is this. Don't be the expert using this. I don't know. All I know is followed by a story.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. All I know is you're going to hear Mike use that here coming up. So let's go ahead. First of all, how many of you would like, we're going to role play now a little bit about how we handle money objections. How many of you would like to learn how to take a money objection and actually turn it into a customer or a coach that goes out there and shares what we do, right? So I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. So here's the thing. First of all, how many of you, when you promote openly on Facebook, you get somebody that immediately comes and the first thing they ask you is what? Hey, it sounds great. How much is it? How many of you immediately then get nervous feeling like you got to explain and justify the price? Okay? So I'm going to give you something. It's going to be in the 5-step training. But when in that situation, when that happens, the very simple answer in that situation, because as soon as you explain the price, if you've not done the rest of the stuff, asked the questions, built the rapport, built the trust, the price is always going to be too much for them no matter how much money they make. Does that make sense?
They just haven't seen the value yet.
They haven't seen the value yet.
That's all.
And so you can avoid provoking those objections simply by saying this. When they come to you and at first, if they want the price first, here's my answer. That depends on how you choose to enroll and what you will need. Why don't I ask you a few questions and we can go from there? Sound good?
Can you repeat that? I think we need to write that down.
Absolutely. How many of you want to write that down? So when somebody if I'm on Facebook or I'm talking to them face to face and they say, well, yeah, but how much is it? You have two choices. You can explain, okay, or you can defer. So I just say, you know what, that depends on what you need and how you choose to enroll. Why don't I ask a few questions and we can go from there? Sound good? How many of you, if I said that to you, you'd be totally cool with the situation and you'd be willing to answer some questions? Right? So just handling it up front that way.
Our wives were the only ones that raised their hands, so I think maybe.
All right. So, but let's say that you get a money objection. So Mike, I'll come over to you. So let's say that I've done the 5-step process with Mike. I've asked the questions. I've shown him the videos. I've used the resources. I've let the resources explain all the information and facts, the resources like the websites and the videos. And let's say that I come to Mike, and Mike has expressed interest in this, and I think that he's pretty much on board, but there's something holding him back. And so I said, Mike, so you seem to be pretty interested in this. What's holding you back on it?
I don't know. It just seems like a lot of money. I don't know.
Okay.
It's $130 a bag?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can totally understand that. In fact, when I first started, so this is Validate and Overcome. I could totally understand that. When I first started, I wasn't quite sure that I would even spend $120 on P90X. I'm so glad I did now because it's completely changed my life. Let me ask you a question. Are you serious about wanting to do this and losing this 30 pounds that you talked to me about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you honestly can't afford it?
Well.
Or are you not serious about that and you're just afraid to tell me no?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I'm just not sure. I don't know. I mean, tell me. Why should I say yes to this right now?
Well,
why should I not just go to the gym?
So, well, you can if you want. Honestly, I just want what's best for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I want to get those results you talked about.
Quite honestly, I'm not trying to sell you on anything. If it's for you, great. If not, no big deal. Write this down. This is what I call, this is what this is disarming. You got to disarm the situation, right? I could easily be provoked into a combative situation where I start trying to justify the expense and trying to sell him on this. Does that make sense? When he says that. But instead, I disarm the situation and say, listen, I'm not trying to sell you on anything. Honestly, if it's for you, great. If not, no big deal. I just want what's best for you. How many of you can do that? You can disarm that situation that way, okay? So it seems to me like maybe you just have a few questions about it. What specific questions would you have that you'd like me to answer?
I don't know. It just $130. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what is this thing actually going to fill me up? Because you talked about it being like a meal replacement. Is that is it really going to work? Because I don't want to have to buy this and go eat lunch or breakfast or.
No, I don't know. Well, what do you typically? So here, I'm going to just go into asking more questions. I want to undig what he's talking about. So typically, what do you do for breakfast or lunch? I mean, what do you do for lunch every day?
For lunch, I mean, I'll go out to lunch, if we're working downtown and, you go to a sandwich shop or one of the restaurants down there and it's probably, I don't know, we'll probably spend $12. Sometimes it's more.
So every day you're spending $8 on lunch. How do you typically feel after lunch when you're eating a sandwich and fries or whatever?
I mean, it's all right. Maybe I get a little bit tired mid-afternoon.
Okay.
Kind of looking for that cup of coffee mid-afternoon,
I mean, with Shakeology, all I know is when I drink Shakeology, I'm full for probably at least a few hours.
Really?
After I drink this thing. Maybe you would be 2 hours, 3 hours. I don't know until you try it. But I'm full for three hours, and it's about $4 a day. So if I could show you a way to actually get healthier food for a lower price and actually save you $4 a day, save you $120 a month, is that something?
Oh, it's only $4 a serving?
Yeah.
Oh, I would do that.
Okay, cool. So why don't we'll just go from there? Does that make sense?
So the thing is that people knee-jerk at $130 a bag. People assume you're selling them a bag of protein powder, and all they've seen is they go to some big box retailer or some vitamin place and they see protein powder on sale for whatever price. This is not protein powder. This is a very complex thing that's got so many different things in it. It's like buying, go to a vitamin store and buy a dozen of the greatest things they've ever had and then somehow get it to all assimilate in your body. But at $4,
right.
$4 a serving sounds a hell of a lot better. When somebody asks me how much Shakeology is, it's about $4 a serving.
But the thing is this, I would never have the opportunity to say that to you unless I saw it as a speed bump. When Mike first came at me, I instinctively got nervous. My heart was doing this, right? How many of you get in that situation? Your heart does this, right? A little bit. But I go back to the skill set and say, okay, how can I handle this? How can I handle this situation? I can disarm it. Okay, I can start asking more questions. I just need to ask more questions. So I started asking about, well, what do you do for lunch? How much do you spend for lunch? He tells me that. Now it's an opportunity for me to share why I use it because it saves me money and gives me better food. Does that make sense?
So he used 2 techniques out of what we wrote down. So he used validate and overcome, and he asked more questions. And so by having these things in your hip pocket, like I just made these notes and laminated it and thought, oh, here we go. and we're going to take these and role play these different scenarios. But this is kind of like what you need until you just have this in your head and you're in these conversations. And this is just matter of fact, because you're just ingrained that when she says, hey, well, I don't know, how much is it? And then you know how to handle the situation. You know how to go in and just ask more questions, or you answer simply with confidence. Hey, it's only $4 a serving. Oh, really? That sounds good. Yeah, great.
In my head, I was just saying to myself, okay, this is a speed bump. I need to slow down and ask a few questions and figure out what information I need in order to give the proper recommendation. Does that make sense? So let's go on to the next one, time.
So Tommy, we were talking about doing this workout, and but you said in their last message to me that you really didn't have time to do this. Is that still the case?
Well, man, I'll tell you what. I get up at 6 in the morning. I help with the kids before I head off to work, and I'm working like 12 hours a day. So I go to work from like 7 to 7, 4 or 5 days a week, and I honestly don't know that I can fit a workout in. That's probably one of the reasons I haven't done it. It's just because I feel like I don't even have the time. I feel so stressed.
Really? Man, I know what that feels like. I mean, I felt the same way before, when I was doing the same type of thing work-wise. I don't know if I hit 12. I might have hit 11 hours in a day. But I found that those 30-minute workouts, I mean, the way I felt,
right.
And I got better sleep, and all I know is that the next day, I just seemed to feel better.
Right.
It just seemed to just take the edge off of how hard the day was in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. All I know is you should check this out.
Yeah, so he says, I don't know. All I know is you should check this out, right? I don't know. All I know is.
Now,
and another thing, like in my head, I was thinking with the if I, would you? I mean, if I could show you a way to do it 25 minutes a day, 5 days a week, would you be open to that? Do you think, would you be able to find time either in the morning or at night in order to get 25 minutes a day in? Does that make sense?
If I, would you?
If I, would you, or I don't know, all I know is both of those are skills and techniques that you can use. But Mike handled that great because honestly, he said, I don't know, all I know is it's worth you checking out. He at least did this. He at least got me to do what? See more information. He didn't give me the more information. He didn't explain the more information. Mm-hmm. What Mike just did was he said, I don't know, all I know is it's worth you checking out. If I showed you a video that explained more about 25 minutes a day, would you watch it? And then what do? Then you go to the online office, or you go to YouTube and you find the T25 commercial or the challenge group commercial, right? Yeah. And you send them that video. And you connect them to a resource and let the resource explain the rest of the details.
Now, another thing with the time objection, if it's somebody I know really well, because a lot of times you're talking to people that you know, right? It might be, a coworker, or it might just be a friend from wherever, school or growing up. And I kind of have this joke I'll say with people, like if they're giving me a hard time about a certain thing, a lot of times I like to just respond in kind. And you don't want to let somebody walk over you. You don't want to be a doormat for somebody. But if somebody is kind of being abrasive, if he was giving me a hard time and he's like, Mike, man, I don't have time. I don't know, man. I work all the time, and I don't have the schedule you have. I'm like, man, last time you get 23 hours in a day and I get 24? Really?
Yeah.
And that's
a posturing
back
thing.
On him. But seriously, why not? If you know him well enough and you can just kind of be lighthearted and jovial about it, because we all get the same 24 hours in a day. And so, think of, so did Einstein, so did Mozart, so did Beethoven, so did John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Come on, you guys. It's the same 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with yours? So I have that in my mindset when I'm listening to this objection going, really? This is
what I call this. Don't be afraid to throw the BS flag.
Yeah.
Right? Like, honestly, that's all Mike did was, really? You got more, I have more hours in a day than you? Saying something like that's really what we call posturing. That's the posturing thing. Something that I might say is this, well, so how's that working for you?
Asking questions. It's a simple thing. How's that working out for you?
So how's that working out for you?
And you're not trying to say it to be crappy. You're not trying to be adversarial, not trying to be rude. You're legitimately asking it, how's that working out for you?
Here's the thing. When you stop and ask that question, it gives them a chance to reflect on how is that actually working out for them. And many of them will come to the conclusion of not very good.
Yeah.
Not very good. I feel like crap. My pants don't fit. I'm pissed off at my closet every time I try to get dressed. Right? We can all understand that.
But that's the time where you want to ask leading questions. And so if you get to that point, when you get to that point, because it's going to come up. So would you like to feel better? Would you like to feel better?
Yeah, honestly.
You want to look better?
Yeah.
Are you serious about losing that weight? Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, because I'm serious about helping you.
A lot of times people will do that. Yeah, absolutely. They'll actually smile and laugh about it. Yeah, absolutely, I do.
And it's getting enough yeses where, okay, so you're serious about this. You said you want to do this. You said you want to feel better. You said you like how when I talked about feeling better the next day after I did that workout, you wanted that feeling, right? Okay, well then just let's do this thing, man. It's gonna be fun. I'm here to support you. We're just gonna have a good time. I don't know. All I know is you need to check this out. Let's do this thing. And if it get like I use our guarantee, the 24 or what's it, the 30-day bottom of the bag guarantee. I use that as a last resort. I mean, I use it if I have to, but I don't lead with it. That's like leading with, hey, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but if you did, it would be okay.
Right.
Like, you're not trying to be a whooped puppy dog, right? It doesn't work.
Right. No, absolutely.
What's another one?
So let's talk about this one, fitness level. This is something that I actually run into. I mean, coming from a place where I was morbidly obese for 20 years of my life, I deal with a lot of people who come from a place of obesity, and they come with this fear that they're not capable of doing the workouts, right? In fact, my after picture was probably a big deterrent to many people because they looked at it and said, that looked really hard. I don't know that I could do that. Does that make sense? How many of you know, like, someone knows P90X, they know Insanity, and then they say that. They're like, well, that's not for me because it's way too hard. Everybody understand that? So for me, I also get the 50 and over crowd that are like, well, let's look at the image of our network. It's pretty young and fit people for the most part, right? But there's no bigger dynamic or demographic of people that could use this more than the baby boomer generation that's 50 and over. That's the first thing, right? Let's get our parents friggin' healthy, okay? The second thing is this. All them people are at retirement. They got money. You're not going to get the money objection from them.
Right.
I don't know why we're not focused on that group of people, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You want to avoid the money objection, go talk to the people that are retired. They got money. Right? Absolutely. But let's say you get the fitness level objection. So let's just say that Mike is 62 years old. Let's just use that situation, all right? Mike's 62 years old, and I've been sharing with him about doing P90X and the fact that I lost 100 pounds and I feel great and all that stuff. But he says to me, you know, man, at 62, I'm not quite sure I could do this. So go ahead and say that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, geez, Tommy, you're talking about these workouts. You're a young guy. I mean, you guys can go all day. I mean, I'm not the same guy I used to be. I've had all these sports injuries from the past and surgeries and these different things. Yeah. And you really think I could? I mean, I can't do what you're. You think I could do what you're doing?
You know what, man? Dude, I totally understand. In fact, my mom felt the exact same way. My mom's 62 years old.
Oh, yeah?
And she had been on cholesterol meds for 20 years of her life. And even on cholesterol meds, on Lipitor, her cholesterol was 280. And she had absolutely no hope that she could ever lose the weight or get off her cholesterol meds. So I just told my mom, hey, Mom, I need you to trust me on this. If you just drink the Shakeology stuff and do this basic beginner program workout called Power 90. And so she do that for 3 months. And I promise you that you could do that. And so she did it. 62 years old. She lost 35 pounds in 90 days. Her cholesterol went from 280 to 140. And she feels great. She's actually wearing high heels and makeup again, feeling hot,
hey.
Which is super cool. So I don't know.
Or can sign me up then.
If my mom can do it, I'm pretty sure that you can do. I'm pretty sure that you can too. What do you think?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you know, that response I just gave, just as silly as it might sound, that is a common response in that demographic.
Sign me up.
When you get a good enough story. And so just like Tommy sharing the story about his mom, Judd Welty on our team, his mom had the same type of amazing benefits with Shakeology and what it did with autoimmune disorders. She was dealing with lupus. And it's learned, you need to know these stories so that you can share a story in response to the objection.
So what did I use in this? I don't know, all I know is my mom, who's 62 years old, and I don't know, all I know is followed by a story that relates to that person. You don't need to have 5,000 different stories.
No.
But if you just can find, listen, many of you won't approach a person that you don't think you can relate to because here's why. You're depending on your own story to sell them on the fact that they should do this. Does that make sense? I could talk to someone who's 65 and use my mom's story. It doesn't have to be my story that relates. Right. It could be somebody else's story. There's one thing that this company has more than anything, and it's what? Friggin' stories of amazing transformations of people who have overcome many, many things. And
you guys have no excuse when it comes, or no objection when it comes to not having stories, because you have the ability and the same rules and the same policies, procedures. We can leverage these other stories. So you need to be familiar with that. You need to know enough of those. And it's no different than if you sign up for some website, the next thing you know, the fastest way to learn that site is just to go all through it. Well, go through the stories section in your Team Beachbody website so that you are familiar with other people that have gone through these things, and you find some weight loss stories, you find some muscle build stories, you find all these different types of stories so that you've got 5 or 6 of them, and make that your goal in the next week is just to learn a few more stories, and then learn a couple more next week, and a couple more next week. It's like Darren Hardy talked about. It's just taking those consistent little steps over time that add up. Next thing you know, you've got so many stories in your hip pocket that it doesn't matter who you come across, and then your confidence goes up because it really doesn't matter who you come across, age-wise, any kind of demographic, it's going to work out because you have the story ready to go. And it's all comes back to relating to people. That's it. It's never convincing. Just relate to somebody.
Yeah, and I know a lot of my coaches will actually come back into our team page on Facebook and say, hey, I've got this person that's X, Y, and Z. Does anybody have a story that they might relate to? Don't hesitate to go ask for that story referral. So listen, guys, we would love to sit here all day and talk about objection handling, but unfortunately, we're going to be running out of time here. So here's really where we're at. How many of you felt like you got something out of today that you could take and use? Okay, that's good.
Good, thank you. That's good.
Good, because sometimes I sit here and go, man, is any of this breaking through? So to know that you got something. But here's the thing. I want you to write this down. Ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice.
Yes.
Ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. You now know how to handle objections. You now have a few simple skills and techniques. You now know to not fact-X people and to build relationship first, right? And build trust first. So you know these things. Here's what's important for you guys going out of this is, first of all, that you take that information and you begin putting it into practice. In fact, if you're afraid to do it with somebody, and listen, you might be afraid to I don't know what to say, okay? Go practice on your spouse, practice on your kids, practice objection handling everywhere you go. Take your husband and say, hey, do you care if I practice this stuff with you? I want you to give me an objection. Let's see how I do with this.
Yeah, it's just you got to get in the groove. You got to get on the bike, and you got to learn how to ride this thing. But the key thing here, too, as you're going forward, you need to manage your expectations and your intentions. One of your intentions that he just said was your intention is to practice. Managing your expectations has to do with the fact that you should not expect everybody to say yes. As much as I want everybody to say yes, it's not everybody's time. You're going to get no's, and you have to before you get to your yeses. You heard Darren talk about this today, right? And so it's like baseball. If somebody is batting 300 today, they're striking out 7 out of 10 times. And that guy's a stud, and he probably makes $5 million in today's money playing baseball. So if we're super well practiced at this, and we've been doing this for years, and we've failed our butts off, and we've gone through all the different things, and we get 3 for 10, when you get started out, you're going to get 1 or 2 for 10. You keep practicing, and eventually you're going to get 2 or 3 for 10. Then you're going to go through a streak, and you're going to get a bunch of yeses in a row. And you're going to go through a slump. And then when you get into that dip, you're going to blast right through it. Because the answer in any one person in this room's business, I don't care if you're a superstar diamond coach, you signed up last week, it's always talk to more people. And when you have the confidence with these skills, you're going to happily talk to more people. You'll engage in conversations all over the place.
Absolutely. And the last thing I would tell you is this: learn, do, teach, repeat. You guys have an absolutely great tool right now to help teach your people about objection handling, because this training is going to be available in the Coach Training Academy, and you can share that with all of your people. Okay? Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much. Mike and I are blessed to be up here today.
Yeah, and, thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate your time.
Love you. Don't be afraid to say hi to us on Facebook or out in the hallways.